Right now, somewhere in your body, an organ is working harder than almost any other organ you have, and it is doing this without ever once telling you directly that something is wrong. It does not have pain receptors the way your stomach does. It does not send you a sharp signal like a headache or a cramp. Instead, when this organ starts to struggle, it whispers. And most people spend years walking past those whispers, assuming they are something else entirely. I am talking about your liver, and by the end of this video, you are going to know 7 of those whispers, 7 signs your body sends out long before a doctor would ever flag something on a blood test. Stay with me until number 4, because that one is the sign almost everybody dismisses as something completely unrelated, and it is often the very first one to show up. Before we get into the list, I want you to understand something about this organ, because it changes the way you will think about every symptom on this list. Your liver does more than 500 separate jobs inside your body every single day. It filters your blood, it breaks down medications, it processes the fat you eat, it stores energy for when you need it, it produces the proteins that help your blood clot properly, it removes toxins, including alcohol, byproducts of digestion, and waste from your own cells. And here's the part that makes this organ so dangerous to ignore. The liver has almost no nerve endings on its surface. You can lose a significant portion of liver function and feel almost nothing unusual, because the organ itself simply cannot scream the way other parts of your body can. What it does instead is affect everything downstream: your skin, your energy, your digestion, your sleep, even your mood. The liver does not complain about itself. It makes the rest of your body complain on its behalf. That is exactly why these 7 signs matter so much, and why almost nobody connects them back to where they actually start. Let's start with the first one, and I want you to really think about whether this describes you. Fatigue that sleep does not fix. Now, everybody gets tired. That is normal. But there is a specific kind of tiredness that is different, and once you have felt it, you know exactly what I am describing. It is the kind where you sleep a full 8 hours, you wake up, and within an hour you already feel like you need a nap. It is heavy, it sits behind your eyes, and no amount of coffee really clears it. Here is why this happens. Your liver plays a central role in regulating your blood sugar and clearing waste products from your bloodstream. When liver function starts to decline, even mildly, your body has to work harder to do the same basic tasks. Toxins that should be cleared efficiently start to linger a little longer. Your energy production becomes less efficient at a cellular level. The result is a fatigue that feels different from being busy or stressed. It feels like your battery never fully charges. Most people blame this on age, on stress, on simply being busy, and sometimes that is exactly what it is. But when this fatigue becomes persistent, when it does not respond to a better night's sleep or a less stressful week, that is when it is worth asking a different question. Is something happening internally that rest alone cannot fix? Sign number 2 is one that creeps up slowly enough that most people do not even notice the timeline. Itchy skin, with no rash, no new soap, no allergy, nothing you can point to. This is a strange symptom, because when people think of liver problems, they think of the stomach or the digestive system. They rarely think of skin. But there is a real biological reason this happens. When the liver is not processing bile properly, certain compounds called bile salts can build up under the skin instead of being broken down and removed the way they should be. These compounds are known to trigger itching, and it tends to show up in specific places, often the palms, the soles of the feet, or all over the body in a way that feels different from a typical dry skin itch. There is no rash you can see, no bump, no redness, nothing a dermatologist would necessarily flag at first glance. People try lotion, they try switching detergents, they blame the weather, and sometimes none of that works, because the source was never the skin in the first place. The skin was just where the problem decided to show itself. Sign number 3, And this one surprises a lot of people because they assume it is just clumsiness, bruising easily or noticing small bruises that you cannot remember getting. Your liver is responsible for producing several of the proteins your blood needs in order to clot properly. When liver function is reduced, clotting can become less efficient, which means even minor bumps, the kind you would normally never notice, can leave a visible mark. If you have started noticing more bruises than usual, especially on your arms or legs, and you cannot remember bumping into anything that is worth paying attention to, it is easy to write this off as getting older or being a little more careless than usual. But your body bruising more easily is, in a very real sense, your blood telling you it is not clotting the way it used to. Now we get to number 4, and I told you to stay for this one, because out of all 7 signs, this is the one I see people misunderstand the most. Changes in the color of your urine or your stool. Specifically, urine that becomes noticeably darker, almost like tea or cola, and stool that becomes lighter than usual, sometimes pale or clay-colored. Here is why this matters so much. Your liver produces bile, and bile gives your stool its normal brown color. When the liver struggles to process a substance called bilirubin properly, the substance can build up in your bloodstream instead of being excreted the normal way. Some of it gets filtered out through your kidneys instead, which darkens your urine. And because less bilirubin is reaching your digestive tract the normal way, your stool can lose its usual color and turn pale. Most people notice the dark urine and immediately think dehydration. So they drink more water, and when the color does not fully go back to normal, they get confused and move on with their day. The reason I wanted you to wait for this one specifically is that this sign, more than almost any other on this list, tends to show up early, and it tends to get explained away the fastest. If you notice this pattern, darker urine that is not from simple dehydration, paired with paler stool, that combination deserves more attention than most people give it. Sign number 5 is one that often gets blamed entirely on diet, when diet might only be part of the picture. Swelling in your abdomen, your ankles, or your legs, especially swelling that seems to build gradually over weeks rather than appearing overnight. Your liver produces a protein called albumin, which helps keep fluid inside your blood vessels instead of leaking into surrounding tissue. When liver function declines, albumin production can drop, and fluid starts to seep out into places it normally would not. This can show up as a puffiness in the lower legs that gets worse by the end of the day, or, in more advanced cases, as visible swelling in the abdomen itself. People often assume this is simply weight gain, or salt in their diet, or sitting too long at a desk. Sometimes that is exactly what it is. But when swelling becomes persistent, when it does not really go away with rest or with cutting back on salty foods, it is worth asking whether something deeper is going on with how your body is managing fluid in the first place. Sign number 6 is subtle, and it is one that tends to affect appetite and digestion in a way people rarely connect to the liver at all. A loss of appetite, feeling full after eating very little, or persistent mild nausea, especially after fatty meals. Your liver produces bile, which your body uses to break down fat during digestion. When that process becomes less efficient, fatty foods can sit heavier than they used to, leading to nausea, bloating, or a feeling of fullness that arrives much faster than normal. Some people notice they have quietly stopped enjoying foods they used to love, not because of any conscious decision, but because their body started reacting differently to them. If you have noticed that rich or fatty meals you once enjoyed now leave you feeling uncomfortable, or that your appetite has shrunk without an obvious reason, that is a pattern worth paying attention to rather than just adjusting around. And finally, sign number 7, the one that often comes last because it tends to be the most visible, and by the time people notice it, they usually look back and realize the earlier signs had already been there for some time. Changes to the skin and eyes, specifically a yellowish tint, known medically as jaundice, and small spider-like clusters of blood vessels that can appear on the chest, arms, or face. Jaundice happens for the same reason as sign number 4, a buildup of bilirubin that the liver is no longer processing efficiently. It often shows up first in the whites of the eyes before it becomes noticeable on the skin, which is exactly why so many people miss it in the early stages, because nobody spends their day staring closely at their own eyes in good lighting. The spider-like blood vessels, sometimes called spider angiomas, happen because of changes in hormone processing that occur when liver function is impaired. Neither of these signs is something to self-diagnose from a video. But if you or someone close to you notices a yellow tint to the eyes, or unusual small red or purple vessel clusters appearing on the skin, that is not something to wait on. That is a sign that deserves a conversation with a doctor relatively soon, not eventually. Now, here is what I really want you to take away from all 7 of these signs together, because looking at them as a list is useful, but looking at them as a pattern is what actually matters. None of these signs, on their own, automatically means there is something wrong with your liver. Fatigue can come from 100 different causes. Itchy skin can be dry weather. Bruising can be clumsiness. Swelling can be sitting too long. Each individual sign has dozens of innocent explanations, and most of the time that is exactly what it is. But the reason your liver is so often called a silent organ is that these signs tend to show up gradually, one at a time, spaced out over months or even years, which makes them incredibly easy to explain away individually. It is only when you step back and notice 2 or 3 of these patterns showing up around the same period of your life that the picture starts to look different. That is the trap. Not any single symptom, but the slow accumulation of several of them while each one gets quietly dismissed on its own. So, what should you actually do with this information? First, do not panic, and do not try to diagnose yourself based on a video. That is not what this is for. What I want you to do instead is pay attention. If you notice 2 or more of these 7 signs showing up around the same time, especially the combination of persistent fatigue with either the skin changes or the urine and stool changes I described, bring that specifically to a doctor and describe the pattern, not just one symptom in isolation. A simple blood test, the kind your doctor can order easily, measures liver enzymes and can give a clear, objective picture of what is actually happening, far more reliable than guessing from symptoms alone. Second, understand that your liver is one of the only organs in your body capable of regenerating itself, which means that in many cases, when problems are caught early, there is a real opportunity to support recovery, especially through reducing alcohol intake, managing weight, and addressing any underlying conditions like diabetes or high cholesterol that quietly put extra strain on this organ over time. The earlier this gets addressed, the more options you generally have. If this video helped you understand your body a little better today, the most useful thing you can do is think back through these 7 signs honestly, not for someone else, but for yourself, and ask whether more than one of them has been showing up in your own life lately. If something on this list made you pause, that pause is worth paying attention to. And if you know someone, a parent, a sibling, a friend, who has been brushing off persistent fatigue or unexplained itching as just stress or just getting older, this is exactly the kind of video worth sending them, because the earlier these signs get noticed, the more they tend to matter. I will see you in the next one, and until then, take these signals seriously, because your liver has been working for you every single day of your life without ever asking for credit.